prevent, and protect with CMIT Solutions. I'm Tom Bennett, President and CEO of the Solon Chamber. My colleague Kaylin Mills is with us as well. And then Sam Foster from CMIT Solutions will be doing the presenting. We are going to get started in just a minute here, just letting other folks get in here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So once again, welcome everybody to the Solon Chamber of Commerce program, Cybersecurity, Prepare, Prevent, and Protect with CMIT Solutions. I dare any of you to try and say that 3 times quickly, and it will be quite hard to do. I'm Tom Bennett, President and CEO of the Solon Chamber. My colleague Kaylin Mills, my colleague Mike Hillman are on, as well. Welcome to everybody who is joining us here today. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So before we formally kick off and turn it over to Sam, I just want to recognize, those organizations that have stepped up from an investment standpoint to help us do what we do throughout the course of the year. And those are listed, you can see on your screen, Swagelock and Raptite as civic investors, key investors of Aflac, Masnick, and Nestle. And if I attempt to read the next slide, Sam will not have any time to present. So our corporate investors are many, and their support absolutely makes us, allows us to do more and more things to serve the business community, make sure that we're meeting your needs. And this program is certainly example of this for those that are, that want to learn more about cybersecurity and how we protect, prepare, and prevent. Last thing before I turn it over to Sam is just our 2 next upcoming programs. Next week we will we'll hear from the Board of Health around the vaccine. We, depending on where you live, depending what city, county, state, jurisdiction, it's a pretty complex formula, and we're bringing the Board of Health in to help explain that, so that whether it's you trying to find a vaccine location for your parents, or if you're a business owner and you're trying to figure out, will I be able to get my employees vaccinated, et cetera. That's a great program. And then our annual State of the City with Mayor Ed Kraus will take place on Tuesday, February 23rd. So with nothing further from me, I want to make sure we get right into cybersecurity. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam Foster of CMIT Solutions.
All right, everybody got my screen. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Kaylin, for setting this up. It's always a pleasure to talk about the thrilling topic of cybersecurity. This will be recorded for any of you that are having trouble falling asleep in the evenings. But for now, we will go with everybody who's here. So I'm Sam Foster, and I own CMIT Solutions here in Cleveland South area. And for most of our customers, we are their full IT department. Whatever sort of needs they have, I'm positive that at some point we've reset the flashing clock on a coffee pot at someone's office. We also handle a few more advanced things: security, help desk, email, network, firewall, cloud, cybersecurity, pretty much from soup to nuts. Anything that you would expect if you've ever worked at a big company that had an IT department, anything you'd expect out of that is what we do for our clients on a smaller basis. So that's pretty much it for us. And with that, I will jump into the agenda for today. So here's a couple of kind of level set. So what I will not do is I will not try to scare you. I will not cover everything. That's a multi-day, multi-week conversation. So I'm going to try to kind of skim across the top and give you some stuff that you can take home on your own. I will not make you an expert. Anybody that tells you that they're an expert is lying. Cybersecurity is a team effort. It takes a lot of people who have a lot of experience to sort of come together and understand what's going on. So I cannot do that in one single session. And there is no magic bullet, right? I don't have the secret formula to say, go buy this one product. So here's what I will try to do. I'll cover, the big four, the why, the who, the what, and the how, for hacking, phishing, some cybersecurity concerns. Give you some tips on how to protect yourself, and then a couple things on what you can do next to protect your own sort of home networks, work networks, things like that. So I was cleaning out my basement and I ran through a box of books and I found from the year 2000, no kidding, the Roadrunner Guide to Cyberspace, right? Back when we called it cyberspace. And I was flipping through at some of the museum points in here, and surprisingly, a lot of it is still pretty topical. But what I found really interesting, I found on page 37, the top 10 internet security problems. And I thought that I would go ahead and list them out from 20 years ago, just for a bit of nostalgia. So, 6 through 10, pretty standard stuff. I guess government agents, depending on your politics, credit card fraud, amateur hackers, professional hackers. Nothing is really too far-fetched, right? Internal credit card fraud, employees stealing customer card numbers, viruses, hardware theft, and of course, this has not changed in ever, and probably won't ever change. Number one is the users, right? The people at the keyboard. We're choosing bad passwords, we're deleting files unintentionally, we're sending sensitive information to the wrong person. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten something that people meant to send to Scott Foster or to Sam Forrester, or, pick some mistyping of my name at a corporate job or a government job. Failure to run backups. I've talked to people who refuse to update systems because it always breaks stuff, and we're running on ancient hardware and software, intentionally circumventing firewalls and antivirus because it's complicated and a pain. And occasionally somebody who's got a bone to pick with the person or the company. So this hasn't changed. We tend to categorize things into two buckets, right? We've either got machine problems with machine solutions or people problems that have people solutions. So of course, the first machine problem that we talk about, in cybersecurity class day one, they say that the first level of security is to put a lock on the door. And who you let into the building, who you let access to your systems. When you walk away from your computer at the coffee shop, you hopefully lock it, right? Sometimes you even take it with you because you don't want somebody to walk away with it. But beyond that, things we can fix with machines, we can apply automatic filters, we can put in firewall appliances, we can use antivirus programs, DNS filters, security operations centers, a lot of things that we can do that are automatic and outside of the humans to help protect ourselves automatically. So then we've got people problems, right? Same thing at that list a minute ago. Bad password habits, your cluttered desk with sensitive information that is buried and you don't even know it's there sometimes. Complacency, we get to the point where, I've never had a car accident, why do I need insurance? We assume that everything's okay because it always has been. We get busy, right? We're too busy to scrutinize that one email that might have been a little bit fishy. Maybe we've got a lack of training or social engineering, right? We're being manipulated and we don't even realize it. So these are kind of the two buckets that we try to put things into. Can we fix it with a machine, or do we have to fix it with training and with people? So what's the bad guy's goal, right? This is super simple, and regardless of ideology or whatever, people are doing things for their government. They still need money to fund those efforts, regardless of what the end goal is. So this slide is a little bit dated, but a couple years ago, we estimated that about 8% of the world's currency is in physical cash, which means 92% is digital, which means it's kind of out there and up for grabs. And a couple of years ago, there was $90 trillion in the world. So 92% of $90 trillion is what's at stake for cyber crime to get their hands on, right? It can be transferred digitally. So they ballpark $6 trillion in cybercrime costs to businesses and people. 20% of SMBs, small to mid-sized businesses, have been victims. Healthcare is a big deal, right? What's the impact? You know, you could lose business, you could take a hit to your reputation, legal issues, any number of things are an impact of cybercrime. So who are these people, right? And I've talked about this before, so if you've been through this, you know, this is nothing new. They're not, you know, the kid in mom's basement. They are organized, they are collaborative, they are sometimes entire cities that are working cybercrime. They're sharing tools, they're sharing efforts, they're sharing contact lists, they're sharing your emails and passwords on the dark web. All of that stuff is happening at a much more organized level than it used to be. So, you know, they're the global hacking, you know, they're nation states. They are disgruntled employees within your own company, right? They're spouses and significant others. They're marketers who are tracking things on the internet, and they're potentially that squirrely kid down the street, allegedly. See, in my notes, it says pause for laughter, but these things are tough on Zoom. So I will move on, assuming that those jokes are not funny. So advertising, I was pulling this up about a year and a half ago to give this, and this disconnect is an extension that you can get in Chrome, and it will actually go through every website. So just going to PC Mag to look at some information. This is the website, and all of these red dots out here are other websites that are getting my information, right? My digital sort of footprint on the web is being delivered to all of these other entities to share what I'm looking for, how long I'm spending on this page, what am I searching for. And you better believe that if I go to Google or Facebook or Pinterest or LinkedIn or any of these places that are getting this information, the next time I go to one of those services, they're going to start advertising password managers to me. And it's not necessarily a security risk, it's just creepy, right? So we try to put in ad blockers and disconnect. And you've seen now that the websites are even smart enough to know that you're running an ad blocker, and they say, hey, we're not going to give you this content until you turn that off, so that we can send advertising. And more to the point, we can sell your online behavior to those advertisers and to these guys on this list. So remember, this is an old bit, but I love it. So never get involved in a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known is that if the product is free, you pay with your information and your attention. I used to work for a guy decades ago that said, you know, I can't afford free. He's like, I don't want anything that I didn't pay for. I added the attention piece because we used to think that it was just your information. There's a movie out on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. If you haven't seen it, it is very eye-opening, and really the point of that is you're paying with your attention. Your screen time, our staring at the screen and giving them our attention is giving them that other data that they need. And what I didn't realize is I thought, okay, you know, they know what I want or what I like, and they're putting those advertising things in front of me to buy. It's actually deeper than that. They're manipulating what we want and then making us go look for it because we want it, right? So all of the influencers and things, it's not just seeing what we want, it's super creepy. And there's, you know, acres of servers, literally that's all they do is grab that information from us on the web, from those trackers, and try to figure out what next to market to us. So I said I wasn't going to try to scare you, and I may have just done that, but it's crazy stuff. So all right, so what do they need from us? You know, they've got a shopping list. Obviously, they would love passwords, bank accounts, social security numbers, all of the big stuff. But beyond that, you know, habits, your schedule, maybe the org chart from your business so that they know who to pretend to be and who to target a little more specifically. Maybe they need your family information, names, birth dates, the things that we put a lot on social media. That are also password reset challenge questions or people using this information as passwords. So a lot of these things are out there, right? Because social media is what it is. I will post this video in the chat later. I won't show it here. It's a live demo of somebody socially engineering a cell phone company to reset passwords and pull information from somebody. It's crazy stuff. So what are they counting on, right? They're counting on our curiosity. One of the oldest moves is to take a USB stick and write accounting or payroll or W-2s and leave it in the parking lot of a big business. People get out of their car in the morning, they see that and they say, oh, accounting. And they literally use their badge, they walk it into the building and they stick it on the network, and a virus is spread that way all the time. Do not stick something in your computer from a USB that you didn't know where it originated from. They use urgency and threats, right? Your password's going to expire, your social security is going to stop, the IRS wants money from you, you're behind, you're delinquent, we're sending the cops. All of these things make you panic and not think through what should really happen. Ignorance, right? A lack of training. We just don't know what we're looking for. Trust, right? They'll pretend to be somebody that we know. Complacency, we get comfortable and we don't think anything can happen. And efficiency, right? We want to work, we want to get our jobs done, and sometimes security gets in the way. So, how do they get our information? What's the process to get it from us? So again, social media, we want to be more interesting and fascinating to our friends out there than what our real lives probably are. Nobody wants to hear that I was curled up on the couch with my cat watching a movie. I want to pretend to be far more interesting than that. So I fill out these questionnaires, and they look a lot like my security questions for my email system or my bank account. And that's it's a classic hacking technique, is to pull that information out of people the more they know. And also outdated software, right? If you're still using Internet Explorer, you should have absolutely upgraded that to the Microsoft Edge. It's pretty automatic in there. But if you see that blue E with the halo on it, it's time to go. So I hear all the time from people, oh, I'm too small, nobody wants my information, we're not big enough, nobody needs my stuff. Security by obscurity is definitely out the window with the automated tools right now. Hackers can cast a very wide net, and they don't really have to target anybody specifically as much. 80% of IT issues are caused by human error, right? It's us. It's the number one thing on the list of concerns. And part of the reason for that is, a lot of businesses have this sort of, we call it the iron triangle, right? In project management, is it fast, is it cheap, is it accurate? Well, you can pick two, but if it's fast and cheap, it's probably not going to be very accurate, right? And if it's cheap and accurate, it's probably not going to be very fast, right? It's going to take a while to get it done. So in cybersecurity, we have the same thing. Is it secure? Is it low cost? And is it easy to use? And you can pick two of these, but it's almost impossible to get all three, right? And businesses making decisions typically are going to choose security, but they're going to choose low cost, and at the expense of what? It being easy to use. So the poor users are stuck with a clunky security solution. It's got a lot of steps and is kind of a pain sometimes. And so when given the option, if users have to jump through a bunch of hoops, they're going to bypass and circumvent security measures to make it easier on themselves. So one of the things we talk about is culture, right? We set those expectations in writing, and we enforce that sometimes through technology with machine solutions, and sometimes it's people solutions with culture. But it's hard, right? Because that stuff can get expensive. So the other issue that we have is that complex passwords they're complex. This is the Hawaii Command Center with that false missile attack several years ago. And you can see here in the command center, there is a password on a Post-it note. And it's a complex password. Like, it's a tough one, nobody would remember. So we had to write it down. So what do, right? We make passwords that are easy to remember. So these are the top 30 passwords in the world. And I want to pause for a second. Tom's got a poll, and I want to ask if anybody's password for any of your systems is on this list. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of no's. That's great news. All right, good deal. Fantastic. All right, so one person had a password on this list, and I hope it's not your bank or your email. If it is, you should definitely work on changing that. And if you don't know how, you should call me, because we want to get that off the list. So very good. All right. So what are they doing, right? The tools, the technical tools, and kind of ideas. Adware and typo squatting is one of my favorite things to say. It's a very fun word, and it basically means misspelling a website or basically misspelling a website, right? So Google with an extra L at the end might not be the real Google, and they'll make it look like it, and they'll take your passwords. Social engineering. Casting a wide net is called phishing, voice phishing, spear phishing, where they kind of do some investigation and some research on a specific person in order to more accurately attack a specific, usually C-suite folks at a business. Juice jacking, which is also super fun to say, is really just those public charging ports that you can just go and plug into. Those very often will upload stuff to your phone or pull data off of it. They're a terrible idea to use. Take your own charger. Um, Public Wi-Fi is generally known to be pretty terrible. And then of course, business email and CEO fraud. Um, People masquerading to be. Oh, we got another poll for public Wi-Fi. This is a good one too. And one thing we'll say about public Wi-Fi, just while we're doing this poll, so it looks like most of you are not using public Wi-Fi, and of course, right now that's really hard because there's not much public. It's hard to get out and do stuff. Remember places? Remember? Um, and some people use them for work or for work and home. If you're going to do that, stay off of your bank accounts and your sensitive stuff, and try to use a VPN, especially if you're using it for work. Talk to your employer about getting a VPN that you can at least encrypt that data on the way through. All right. So, a quick stat. This is a pretty old slide. This number's gone up quite a bit. 40%, 43% of spear phishing attacks were directed at smaller businesses, companies with 250 or fewer employees. And you think, well, I've seen those garbage emails, right? Who actually opens that crap? 30% of phishing emails get opened. And maybe they don't get clicked on or all the way through and bad stuff installed, but they get opened to actually look at stuff. Almost 300 billion emails are sent every single day. And so 30% of the 80 million phishing emails that got opened, that's 24 million phishing emails get opened every day. That's a lot of risk, right? So some of that is a matter of training, how to spot that stuff. And some of that is some machine solutions with tools to block that as it comes in. But those signatures are really hard to keep up with the bad guys. Here's what they're tempting us with, right? Some of this is urgency. Some of this is curiosity. We want to see press release. We want to, we're expecting packages all the time. So all these delivery attempts, UPS and Amazon, a lot of this stuff is very clickable because it's stuff that we see every day and that it's important to us to read. So other types of attacks, the types go on and on and on. The most frequent one after April is, hey, we're the IRS, we want money, your taxes are behind, et cetera. So lots and lots of different things just to kind of be on the lookout for. And of course, there's the dark web, where everyone can go buy information. So once they've compromised a password, compromised a bank account or a credit card, they use it for their purposes and they go post it and sell that information. You can even buy hacking services from people, a denial of service attack from a group of people, or crypto locker software, or somebody to do the work for you. It's all out there. Crazy stuff. I've never actually been to the dark web, but we do scan for that stuff for a lot of our clients. So how do we combat this, right? How do we protect ourselves from all of these guys? I mean, the obvious choice is chewing on the cable. But no, I mean, there is no secret formula, right? There's no string of garlic. There's no magic wand. There's no silver bullet. There's not one singular thing that we can say, oh, I have this one thing, so I'm safe and protected. We talk about layers. If anybody went outside this morning yet, if you're not working from home, if you're going to be out for more than about 5 minutes, you better layer up, right? And we certainly know that here in Northeast Ohio, just like back in medieval times, we knew that, just a wall, and I don't care how high you build it or how many of them you put up, one ladder fixes all the walls. So we build moats, we build towers, we build a lot of different layered things that work together to make one sort of security effort. And in cybersecurity, that is no different. We put technology, machine solutions together with people solutions, right? We put policies and procedures in place. We do awareness training. We do knowledge for the staff, right? So we put the technology in place, we train the staff, and then of course, as a failover backup plan, we put in cybersecurity insurance. Um, you know, Insurance should never be your first go-to, your first line of defense. I don't roll my windows down and leave my keys on the seat of my car because I have insurance. Insurance is there in case the worst thing happens. So we kind of stack these things up. Yet another graphic to illustrate the layering of cybersecurity. Tom and I might agree that 7 patties on a hamburger is not a bad idea, but each of the other pieces of this puzzle actually give it a little bit of flavor and all work together in concert to make what I think is a better burger, although a couple extra patties of beef would never be turned away. But you get the general idea of layering, right, to put all that stuff together. So one of the ways people get stuff from us is saving passwords in your browser. This is a terrible idea. All of these browsers, if when that little pop-up comes up, says, do you want to save this password? It is so easy and so tempting to just say yes. And whenever you go to that website again, it just automatically logs you in. So this is a good poll here for browser password reset stuff. So while you're kind of filling that out, Chrome and Edge and Internet Explorer and Firefox and Safari, all those, they store these passwords in there, but they are in plain text. So one of the virus phishing attempts that we see is the link that's there doesn't go to your bank website. It actually installs a small program that peels this file out of your browser and sends it back to the hackers. And they have every password that you save in Chrome, et cetera, sitting there in clear text. So we typically want people to turn that off and lean towards the next slide here. So looks like some of the passwords, 2 to 6 months is not terrible. And this is sort of a caveat, right? More than a year ago, this isn't terrible if you've got multi-factor authentication as another level. They actually talk about, we've switched the change it every 90 days to change your password to something complex that you can remember, or use a password storage mechanism, and then leave it if you've got multi-factor turned on. So let's see. So not bad. Overwhelming 2 to 6 months is pretty good for email and banking. Same password. I mean, look, it's hard. It's hard to change passwords and it's hard to keep track of that stuff. And then, again, do you save your passwords in your browser? This is definitely something that you can help yourself. So, the last note here, right? All of these store passwords in clear text. Firefox does have a feature where they've got a password you have to put in to get to the passwords. But I believe, unless they fixed that recently, all of the stored passwords are in a file that leave them in clear text. They're not encrypted. So that file, if somebody got it, is just an Excel spreadsheet of your passwords. So we talk about password management tools, right? The big 3, LastPass, Dashlane, and Zoho. The list goes on. There are countless numbers. These are much, much better. They're much more secure. They actually lock down that little password vault with multi-factor. They use a complex password, and the file itself that keeps those is encrypted on the drive. So if somebody gets a hold of the drive or that file, it's all gibberish unless they've got your passphrase to get it out. The other thing, and if you haven't heard me say this before, it's worth repeating, use multi-factor authentication. Anytime you're putting in a password on a device, if you're not getting prompted with a text message or an authenticator code, either through Microsoft or on Google, there are some third-party apps through Authy. LastPass is one of the password managers that also has an MFA generator. Duo has one. There are hard tokens. Remember these from back in the day, the RSA hard tokens. These are generally single use. They're not, they don't, you got a whole key ring full of these, right? You're like the janitor. If you don't have this turned on, you should definitely go where you reset your password and flip the switch, give it your cell phone for a text message, or kick it on one of these tools, and you'll be glad. So how do you spot phishing emails, right? I won't go through this whole thing. There's plenty of information out there on the web, but legitimate companies will typically send you messages and they will call you by your name, right? You will not be dear customer, dear member, dear subscriber. They will sign it with a person's name, generally when they're corresponding. It will not be from management or HR. They know how to spell. They don't typically use threatening language. They don't typically use confusing links or disguise links. If there's something that says click here, you can hover over that, and down in the bottom of the screen shows you the real website that they're getting ready to take you to. If something looks off, it probably is. And they typically won't send you weird oddball attachments for things. Another way that we can protect ourselves is, you've probably seen this. So just last night, my wife was complaining about her place of work because now they've got this giant banner on top of every email that comes from outside of the company. She said, well, if this is on every single email, all of my stuff, then what do I care, right? And I said, well, okay, but what if you get one that you think comes from somebody in your organization, right? Your boss's boss's boss asked you to go buy some gift cards for customer appreciation, and it looks a little bit fishy, and you're trying to look for another sign. This might be a really good thing to red flags that this didn't come from inside of your company, it actually came from outside, and is probably something bad. Just, well, okay, I guess I could see that, right? So it's not the catch-all, right? It's not the silver bullet, but it's one more layer that we can help identify things that are from outside. And if people are trying to pretend to be inside, this is one of those extra pieces that can help. So again, the layers of prevention, I won't read this to you, but firewalls, antivirus, keeping things patched, encrypting emails, encrypting data, spam filters, DNS, backing up your data, training the staff, cybersecurity insurance in case of, break glass when things go terribly. Careful what you share on social media, change your passwords, use MFA for goodness sakes. Establish an approval process for wire transfers. I can't count the number of horror stories I've heard from people with bad wire transfer, sending stuff to the wrong people, and it's gone forever. And of course, try to stay off public Wi-Fi unless you're using a VPN, and don't go to your important websites on public Wi-Fi, right? So this is a form that I had to fill out recently every year when I update my cybersecurity insurance for my company. So you can kind of see through here, and I highlighted a couple things, right? Do we include phishing training and testing for our staff? Do we enforce multi-factor authentication for Office 365? Do we, SPF is another class all on its own, but do we enforce SPF on incoming emails? Filter for bad stuff. Do we tag emails that from the external, right, to tell people that it originated from outside? It goes on and on. Do we install malware protection, antivirus, EDR stuff? Again, multi-factor authentication for privileged account users, DNS protection, deploying security patches. All of these things that we talk about, I mean, these are things that we have to validate in order to get our insurance, right? Are we taking monthly backups? And then sort of just random other measures, open text free entry here, segmentation of the network, additional software tools, external security services, all of this other junk that takes a little bit of training to implement, right? The Spectrum router that came out of the box probably does not have any of this stuff. Spectrum's there to give you internet, not to secure your network. so those are other things that that people come to us for, or you can look up how to set that stuff up on yourself. So here are some action items for us, right? And I guess the first thing is 4 things to sort of avoid as we go through here. So don't classify cybersecurity as strictly an IT, a technical issue. The human elements are usually what get they get focused on and get breached. Don't dismiss it as a large organization problem. Small to medium businesses are great targets because we typically don't spend the money on cybersecurity like bigger organizations, so it's easier for them to get through. Don't look for a singular problem. We layer those solutions because they need to all work together, and don't rely on static solutions. This is, I hear a lot, oh, we had somebody come in 3 years ago and fix everything up, or we bought this one product years ago, right? The bad guys are always developing new stuff to come after our information and our money. So those threats need to stay ahead, right? And the one thing, as hokey as it sounds, the culture of security, I love walking by the water cooler at a client and hearing people talk about that phishing email. Oh, did you see that? Whatever. It's much healthier for the organization than talking about Jenny's new haircut too. So we like to kind of, the more we talk about it with the staff, the more they talk about it amongst themselves, and the awareness gets heightened. So what can you do now? If you don't take anything away from this hour of your life that you'll never get back, the one thing is to enable multi-factor authentication wherever you can. I'm talking your Amazon account, your PayPal, your bank probably already has it, your email, any of those systems, especially places that you can spend money, turn it on. And if you don't know how, or if you're scared to do it, give one of us a shout, and we will help you get that set up. Number 2, be suspicious of every inbound solicitation. Anything that comes in from the outside, whether it's an email or a phone call, people pretending to be somebody, don't click on those links. Don't give people that call you information, right? If the bank sends you an email to reset your password, close the email, open up a website, go to your bank site that you know that you've used before, and log in. Do not click links in emails, and do not take, whether it's a letter in the mail or a person knocking on your door or carrier pigeon or smoke signals, don't trust anything inbound. Use a password manager, get out of the web browser, the Chrome and the Edge. And then, if you're going to use public Wi-Fi, don't go to important accounts, and try to use a VPN if you can. And of course, don't be careful what you share on social media. So those are some things that you can all do yourselves right now. And that is it. I went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I think I've got some time for questions. And this is my contact information if you would like to reach out to get anything more specific answered. And here's where you tell me that my microphone's been off for the last 40 minutes.
Hey, Sam, Tom Bennett here. I have a quick question, and thank you so much for your presentation. As a user of LastPass, and it is definitely the awesome to use. Can you sort of give so I'm one that has probably way too many passwords saved on Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to get that data out and into LastPass?
So that's a great question. Typically, when you've got LastPass running on the browser, going to a website, when it should prompt you to save a password in LastPass when you're there. So even if Chrome populates it, that LastPass bubble should still pop up. And once you've connected it, or sometimes you can just manually put them in, right? You can go into LastPass and just simply manually add a, and the same thing, I use Dashlane. A lot of my guys use LastPass. We like to use different stuff so that we're familiar with the different platforms to help people when they have questions about it. So I know in Dashlane, I can just add manual websites. So sometimes I'll just take a minute and put that stuff in on my own. But a lot of times, even if it was saved in the browser, it'll prompt me to put that in. And then once you've got it connected, we recommend the little 3 dots in Chrome there. And under settings and passwords, you'll see all of your passwords listed like in the slide. You can hit the little eyeball icon and see clear text. So if you're adding, or maybe stick them in Notepad for a minute until you can get them into LastPass, and then delete that. And you can remove each of those individual passwords from Chrome independently. And then we usually hit those sliders and turn off the request to save passwords, and turn off the ability to save passwords in the browser. And that usually helps.
No, that's very helpful. So, I mean, it sounds as if from my perspective is getting into Chrome and sort of looking at all of those, seeing and then comparing them to LastPass, but then eventually just getting rid of all of those on my browser and then turning off the setting that makes that suggestion.
Yep. And it's pretty easy to find. I mean, you'll see security and passwords right there in the list of settings.
Well, Sam, you said you weren't going to scare us, but I'm scared.
I know. It's not usually my intent, but sometimes the information is scary, whether, as true as it is. I don't like the parlor tricks where I'm going to hack into your iPhone while we're here on the meeting, right, and send you messages or print things out at your office from my office. But
Thank you.
it can get a little scary, I know.
Yeah, I'm doing a cybersecurity presentation from the Solon chamber, so I'm going to ask them about SharePoint and other stuff too.
I think someone
Dan, it
forgot
sounds
to
like you've
mute.
got a question.
I don't think Dan had a question. Dan was trying to get hacked right there. He was
That's
giving us
right.
our
So,
SharePoint password.
Yeah. So a good starting point is enabling something like LastPass or -. Sounds like a good starting point.
Those are a great start. Yeah, get the passwords out of the browser, and get into a password management. And when the mistake people make is to, oh, this is the password I use for everything, I'll make it my LastPass password also, right? Create a brand new one. One of the schemes that we talk about is, take your favorite song, right? And, Stairway to Heaven or whatever, right? And then take a phrase from that you really like, and use the first letter of each word in that phrase as your password, right? So, and she's buying a Stairway to Heaven, ASBASW2H, and now you've got an 8-digit passcode, right? And you can start to substitute. We start to substitute numbers for vowels and stick exclamation points in instead of eyes and that kind of stuff. So you can make it as complicated as you like, and you've got the key to unlock it, right? You know what it stands for, but to anybody else, it's just gibberish.
Yeah, I can speak from experience having that master password as key, because I've had to reset mine a couple times because I can't find it, and I don't want to put a Post-it note on my desk. So I have it buried, in my phone in an area that doesn't identify it, just so that if I don't but it is it's been a lifesaver from my standpoint, of feeling far more secure and less scared about information that's out there.
You mean it's not under your keyboard on a Post-it?
Oh, no. Thanks for the idea, though.
Actually, Sam, I do have a question. So if somebody puts something on your phone, is there any way for you to know that? Like if you get a virus on your computer, you get pop-ups like it's slow, you notice something's wrong, but if that happens to your phone, do similar things happen?
Phones are a little bit trickier to do that stuff with, and honestly, the phone security stuff is a little hard. There's not necessarily a way that you would know. I mean, there are tools that you can get from Android and Apple to, run those kind of security audits. We have tools that we can run for folks that, if that's a service that they want, if they're concerned about it. I mean, typically things are not too bad. I worry more about, plugging those in and having something leave your phone more so than I do things coming in. I mean, iPhones and stuff, like now you kind of have to approve and allow that stuff to happen for the most part.
Sam, I have a question for you.
All right.
Looking at SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams, in terms of the security for data in there versus companies using physical servers on site, is there a significant risk, or is the multi-factor authentication pretty good at preventing people from getting access to that data?
I mean, MFA is absolutely step number one for that. In case you missed the 17 times that I mentioned that, if I wasn't crystal clear about it. I mean, locking those accounts down with MFA is obviously number one. There are some tricks in there. I mean, lots of big companies, banks and governments use SharePoint to house their data, right? So when you do it correctly and lock it down and make it restrict it to people on site and people in the company, can be incredibly secure. If you're very casual with it and let people access it and let people download that information to their local devices, without the proper restrictions, it can be kind of clunky. So, I mean, it's not a straight answer, but you'll rarely get one of those out of an IT guy, because there's always caveats. But yeah, it can be very safe and secure and functional.
Thanks.
Yeah. And we like it. More so than actually physical servers sometimes, depending on how it's set up. The one thing I'll say is the data that's on those there's a difference between file sync and share and data backup. And a lot of times people confuse that OneDrive SharePoint as data backup. Oh, my data is in the cloud, it's backed up. Not necessarily the case, right? It's really just a convenience feature to synchronize and share your data to other devices or to other people, for traveling employees or people with multiple devices. But one bad thing, a virus on your local machine gets replicated to the cloud because it's synchronizing good data as well as bad. So we like to also take that OneDrive SharePoint and make a carbon copy of it off of the Microsoft system that doesn't have logical access. So something gets in and starts to spread, it doesn't actually spread to the backed up data of that file system.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey Sam, it's Mike. Thanks for your presentation. I just was curious, can you talk a little bit about VPNs and if you have any recommendations of ones that you think are good?
Yes, but no. So VPNs they're fantastic. A lot of times if you've picked up a firewall or security solution for your office, it will come with a VPN account. So a lot of organizations that have put in a device like that already have the ability to VPN, so you can actually connect back to your office network from wherever you are with your machine and use the office internet. You build a tunnel from the coffee shop to the office, and then the office uses the internet out to the world. If you've got low bandwidth at the office or you don't have one of those security devices, now you're out to the open market. So part of what I got, Dashlane, the paid version of Dashlane, which is a password manager, also has VPN built in. So I can actually use that wherever I am and just use the Dashlane. I think it's $5 a month maybe. So I pay for that account. If I'm really stuck somewhere and for whatever reason I can't get to the VPN at my office, I can just use Dashlane to access VPN. We used to talk about Nord, N-O-R-D, which was a big one. They got breached a year or two ago, and so that sort of became we took them off the list pretty quickly, although I think the breach wasn't nearly as bad as people wanted to make it out to be. It was just the fact that it was the VPN company that got breached, raised a lot of red flags for people. But I mean, unfortunately, that's part of the cost of doing business, right? Is some of these folks they become big targets when they become big, big companies that provide that kind of service, just like SolarWinds and some other ones. So does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
So Sam, as an insurance person, I was glad to see you include the cyber insurance as part of your presentation. Just to let people know that if that's something that you're looking to do, some of the things that Sam talked about are required for you to be doing in order to get the insurance. So you might need to have some of that virus software or employee handbooks talking about how to manage your email accounts and so forth. So there are some requirements that come with the insurance application that Sam had put in front of us. So just a good idea. It's not a panacea. It does require some risk management on your side. in order to get that extra layer of protection.
Well, that's a good point, Tom. And that was, those slides I had of the ransomware questionnaire. I mean, that literally came 2 weeks ago from my insurance company as I was renewing my business insurance, my cybersecurity, my, errors and omissions and all that. That's the document I had to fill out. And I better have a row of yeses on that for my own operation internally, to be able to get insurance for sure.
Yeah, it turns out to be a pretty good checklist, because if you answer no, it's kind of a knockout question. So a lot of times we have to counsel folks on what they need to have in place in order to get the insurance.
Well, that's what I told them. I said, "Can I use this? This is great marketing. Like this is this is perfect, right?" Yeah, I just don't want to use I don't want to use insurance as the first line of defense, right? It's a break glass, not the one thing we do.
So Sam, I guess just one last last question, and we'll give people like 7 minutes of undocumented time to surf the internet before their 10 o'clock Zoom call.
That's right. Use this time to enable MFA and clean up your browser passwords.
So I guess just a wrap up question is, we had the huge federal hack, that and permeates in that, and then do we see that filtering down to to us, as small businesses and so forth, or is that I know the threat is real, the things that you talked about, but the after effect or the repercussions, from this, do we see that filtering down to us as small businesses?
Well, of course, any of that is gonna be a ripple effect, right? But I guess it makes the news because it's, Akron Airport, City of Akron, City of Baltimore, whatever the big names are, they make the news because they're the big names. You don't hear about the 5-person law firm down the street because it's not newsworthy, right? It doesn't mean that they're not already under attack or dealing with it. It just doesn't make the news because it's not as, it's not a great story, right? It's not as interesting. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, Tom, but I don't know that there's a direct impact to us. I mean, you certainly would have gotten notified if you had information. Macy's sent an email that said, "Hey, you got a Macy's credit card, right? And we got our database hacked. We recommend, this and this solution," right? So by law, they have to notify people that are part of that breach if your information was part of what got released. But yeah, I don't know that. I think all of that is sort of happening all at the same time. They're the automated tools now. They don't have to spend the time to target one person at a time. They can cast a very wide net and attack all of us at almost exactly the same time.
Gotcha. Well, I want to thank you, Sam. This was certainly informative. I don't know really how there is any way we can talk about that, as you started your presentation with the I will nots. But I also think it's a matter of, what we can do to prevent and protect. And it really is, about doing some of the basic things. Yes, some of them take time, but putting that time in, sort of that one time to get yourself to a baseline, and then spending some time, whether that be quarterly, monthly, et cetera, to make sure you're doing stuff, or, in our case, calling you 50 times a week with our issues and saying, hey, this person's been whitelisted, or, something's not getting through. But it's really, I think it's really important to each of us as individuals in our businesses to, make sure we're doing the stuff we need to do so that we can, not have that hat on, all the time. But if we don't acknowledge that, cybersecurity and IT is important, it can certainly, cripple your business or cripple your, identity. So I want to thank you again on behalf of the Solon Chamber. I found this very informative and look forward to continuing to learn more from you as as we progress along. Just a reminder to folks, this presentation can be found on our website at solonchamber.com/slides. This has been recorded, and that will go up, and we'll follow up to those attendees with any additional information. We look forward to hosting similar events like this in the future. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sam.